Hello and welcome to Horrible Histories of Lough Neagh, a short series of videos presented as part of a project for Irish Heritage Week 2020. I'm Sharon Arbuthnot, and in this instalment I'm going to look at the tradition of how the eels got in the loch. We know that eels have played an important part in life in and around Lough Neagh since the Bronze Age. Skeleton remains of eels have been uncovered around the loch that date back 3,000 or 4,000 years. In the medieval period, sea fishing was probably less important than today, but salmon, trout and eels were caught in rivers and lochs using eel spears and fish weirs such as that you see in the picture here. We don't know much about how people around Lough Neagh would have eaten eels in medieval times. We actually don't have any early recipes from Ireland at all. The eels were probably boiled in a simple soup. Medieval French and Italian recipes have survived, such as that for eel pie, which suggests that the eels are boiled in a sauce containing chopped nuts, spices, dates, raisins and figs, and it's possible that the Normans in Ireland consumed eels in this way as well. Now, a plate of eels may not be to everyone's taste, but eels qualify for my horrible histories on account of some of the stories that have grown up around them. These stories are all modern and come from the National Folklore Archive. Amongst them there's a fantastic story about a particular eel in Lough Neagh collected from Mrs. Brian Wood of County Monaghan in the 1930s. Mrs. Wood tells us how the eels got in the loch. Long ago in some parts of Ireland, many people were known to practice what's called the black art and have been known to change themselves into all sorts of shapes and forms. On the shores of Lough Neagh there was a castle occupied by Desmond, a young and handsome lord, and his beautiful wife. Many were the stories the young wife heard of her young lord's ability to change himself at will. Many times she begged of him to change himself into something, and he would smile sadly and say, "Do not ask me, dear, for you will scream with fright, and never again will we live so happily together." "Do not be silly," said the young wife. "I will know it is my own noble lord and master." And given in to her, he left the room. Suddenly she fancied a gush of wind swept through the closed door, and she sat down to wait his return. After a while she felt something tugging at the hem of her dress. On looking down she saw a large eel twisting and twirling round the leg of the table. It had a human head, and the grinning, upturned countenance was that of her husband. While shrieking and screaming wildly, she fell into a swoon, and the wriggling eel jumped through the window into the loch, where it's said to remain to this day. There's a long tradition of spotting eels with human faces, and I show you these pictures just to suggest how such creatures might have been the inspiration for these stories. In Irish folk traditions, eels are sometimes associated with other bizarre features. According to a story collected in County Dublin in the 1930s, the largest freshwater eel caught in the Bloomfield district was over 5 feet long. It was caught by Peter Callan about 1904, and people who saw the dead eel said there was something unusual about it. My question for you then is, what was unusual about the eel caught in the Bloomfield district around 1904? The people who saw it said it had arms and legs, a mane of red hair, 2 pointy ears, or a black beard. When we put this question to a live audience, the runaway winner was a mane of red hair, and this is indeed the correct answer. Such tales of enormous eels with hair seem to have been relatively widespread. This is another, this time for a native of County Leitrim, and he tells that one moonlight night when a man was fishing near Ballincar Bridge, he heard a whistle. As he stood gazing over the bridge, he saw appearing over the water the head and upper part of an eel. 10 times longer than any he ever saw before, it had a long mane of black hair down its back. He distinctly saw it put its tail into its mouth and whistle. It seems likely that these accounts of eels with hair are actually referring to the dorsal fin that can move in water and flow like hair. But there's a tradition that an eel is formed when the hair of a horse is dropped into water. And there's a word which suggests that in medieval times the Irish just might have had a similar view of how eels came about. In modern Irish, the word for an eel is escan, but medieval Irish had also this strange word esmón. Es refers to a stream, quickly flowing water, and mung is a word for hare. So it may be that the people of medieval Ireland sometimes called an eel a water hare, a hare in a stream. I hope that you've enjoyed this short series on the horrible histories of Lough Neagh, and that you'll look out for other outputs from our project Spreading the Words.